I finally watched Free, and really, this isn't a series I ever had pinned on my list of to watch at any point with my time watching anime and running this channel. For whatever reason, this series just really wasn't on my radar, even though it's from one of my favorite studios and God's favorite studio, KyoAni. Maybe it was fatigue from watching almost a dozen KyoAni anime in the span of a year or so, or maybe my massive 40-minute Hyoka review that got me burnt out on this studio. Subtle plugs aside, who knows, but I finally watched Free, and continuing with the theme of anime I've seen with viewers of this channel in my Discord for this 12 Days of Anime, I watched this with tons of people in my Discord, not so subtle plug. With that out of the way, let's get into the video, and I hope you enjoy this episode of the 12 Days of Anime. Let's begin. Free is essentially hot swimmer boys taking off their clothes, a jacket, to get down to some hot and steamy... No, I'm just kidding. It's actually nothing like that. But you'd be surprised that there are some people who may think that. But let me reassure you that this isn't one of those shows. Instead, though, and I am about to go full KyoAni generic anime YouTuber analysis here, I think this anime is more of a technical showcase and display of what KyoAni can really pull off. This anime, I found, is the best of every world, and KyoAni seemingly is just firing off with all cylinders with this production. Not only are the visuals out of this world, but as well the writing and characterizations are phenomenal, and truly an exemplification of KyoAni's ability to write fun, but also still grounded and relatable characters. If you had any doubts, discard them, for KyoAni just nails yet another anime series with ease. And as well as a person who's been critical of shows from them like Violet Evergarden, and I guess I've also been on the opposite side of that at one time too, and Tsurune, I felt so refreshed watching Free. But I'm digressing here. The best thing about Free is something that will require explaining other aspects of the show to fully understand, so I'll get to that by the end of this video. But one of the key aspects of Free, of course, is the swimming. It's an accomplishment with how well this show is animated, because, to put it frankly, it's got some of the best looking water animation in anime currently. You might as well call Free the Sea of Thieves of anime, because the water is so on point it makes me want to use the bathroom. It's that good. And while I can't use clips anymore on this channel, I promise the water in motion is spectacular. And while I know I've seen an article about this somewhere and I can't seem to find it, if you have a link me in the comments below. But I remember reading something about the studio spending a lot of time and effort just trying to get the water to look and feel just right to the viewer. And as you can tell, they did just that, because I just compared the water to Sea of Thieves, which is a multi-million-dollar game backed by Microsoft and developed by the legendary Rare Studios, so take that as you will. But that ain't it, Chief. The characters' facial expressions, emotes, and movements are something we can't forget about. This is KyoAni after all, the studio which somehow made Teenage Legs a technical showcase. Thanks Naoko Yamada, and I think the best example of this is Go, the manager of the swimming club and #1 fan of muscles. Go is, like every other character in this anime, very endearable and easily lovable from the moment you see her, but after she shows her most recognizable trait, she is etched into your memory immediately. Of course, it's her love for chiseled bodies, and I mean, who could blame her, especially in this anime? And as well, this is a KyoAni anime after all, which means everyone is gonna be like out of this world attractive. But her reactions to these chiseled bodies is important because this shows off something KyoAni has seemingly always been good at, and that's emotional expressions. Go's expressions are meticulously crafted, which shows once again the details that KyoAni are great at doing. When she does her classic facial expressions, small things like her perking up, raising her shoulders, or simply just putting her legs together and going to her tippy toes while turning left and right a little slightly. There are movements which for any other anime aren't animated, as, I mean, why would they? Usually a shot of Go's face would be enough in any other anime. She's cute enough to where the message has gotten across completely as she's striking, and putting in extra details like that aren't as needed for some directors to have. But KyoAni adds these little tidbits because Go's presence on screen isn't often seen, so when she's on screen you have to really make every second count. And while she isn't the most, I would say, memorable character out of all of them, most people, I guarantee you, will know her for her fantastic expressions and her reactions to muscles of all shapes and sizes. And that's why KyoAni animated those expressions, because now you remember Go, which means they've succeeded in their art, at least when it comes to her. Yes, I just spent 2 paragraphs on a minor character. Don't at me, but if you do at me, at SeaTacticsYT on Twitter, follow me there, links in the description. KyoAni's dedication to getting the details right never ceases to amaze me. They are constantly innovating and finding new ways to present anime that you can't get with most any other studio out there to this day. And their characters' expressions are just one piece of the puzzle, but a major one to consider at all times. I can easily tell you a lot about these characters just based off their movements and how they express themselves. Haru has a neutral look on his face all the time. He's the most blank character out of all of them, but that makes him unique because he's in a cast full of expressive characters. But also, when he does express himself, he doesn't need to do it a lot because when he does, you'll notice it. It's like the opposite of Go in a way, where she has to overexpress herself to remain memorable, but Haru really doesn't need to push to do something like that. An example of this is when Kisumi is introduced in Season 2. The look Haru gives him is one of sheer indifference towards him because he just doesn't like Kisumi. But this reaction is a perfect example because that moment, that one single cute little facial expression he did was enough for me to remember that scene entirely. And this is every single character in the anime. They all have something that makes them different or react different. My boy, Nagisa, as an example, is a treat because this guy is always bumping into people, eating way too much, or just the weirdest concoctions of food. He's a mischievous character whose devilishly good looks probably gets him off the hook a couple times. And the presentation of him from an animation standpoint is just on point. And to wrap this segment up, Rei is over the top, Rin is a fucking shark, Sosuke is cool, collected, etc, etc, etc. They all are pretty well animated, and I've spent too much time just talking about characters and how they're animated. Moving on. But one aspect which may go overlooked is the fantastic writing for these characters. KyoAni really knocked this out of the park, and I think maybe one of their most entertaining anime series to date. I think the criticism of KyoAni making sometimes boring anime isn't without its merit from time to time. Of course, not everyone will like everything, and some people will like things people hate. Look at the supposedly most hated band ever, Nickelback, which continue to sell out stadium and tours in spite of what people say about them on the internet. But Free is simply entertaining in the most joyful sense of the word. It's been a long time since I've just had fun watching an anime like I have with Free, and that's thanks to the writing and characters. The characters in particular are amazing because they're so well developed and complex while remaining at the same time simple to a point. For example, in Season 1, Rin Matsuoka is the brooding guy who's kind of verging on being an asshole at times. But in Season 2, he's a great big softie who's the first one to cry and is highly emotional. Rin, I think, may be one of the better characters because he's shown a considerable amount of development over most of the other characters. Maybe even more than our MC Haru. What Rin goes through in just the first 2 seasons of Free is exactly what Free is all about in terms of characters. There is always some kind of conflict for a character or wrinkle, which makes them all that much better and more than just generic hot KyoAni boys. This show just knows what buttons to push and how and where to push them. Every season has its fair share of comedy, story, and drama all wrapped up into a neat little bow. This helps further develop the conflicts which sees our characters grow and show sides you'd normally not see. A great example is Haru, again, who isn't all that emotive, but when he does, it's memorable. In Season 2, there is a scene where Haru gets angry and yells. This is something not often seen for Haru because he is usually chill and reserved to himself. But when Haru gets angry, boy does it show. But this shows that Haru definitely does get angry and that he's actually really passionate for swimming and as well his friends. And when this leads Rin to take him to Australia with him to get his spark back, it shows an important moment for Haru and Rin. Haru's character develops and grows from this experience in a tangible and noticeable way. Conflict is important for a show like Free because while the show's conflicts are super dramatic, it adds to the entertainment factor of the show. But the best thing about Free, the reason this anime is so well loved and adored by many people besides hot boys, is because this all works in tandem to create a great watching experience for the viewer. Free ties all of these aspects together with drama that will keep you hooked and comedy that will keep you laughing. It's the best example of what KyoAni does best, and it has everything I want in 2019 from a KyoAni anime. Which is funny because this anime first released in 2013 to go on by the end of the decade to release multiple seasons, movies, and specials that are adored and loved by many people, including myself. In closing, Free is pretty great, to be honest. I am glad I finally got around to watching this series because it really shows a lot of KyoAni's strengths as a studio. With their spectacular animations for water and character movements when they're swimming, it feels like yet another showcase of this studio. But while the art and animation are always a sight to behold for pretty much any modern KyoAni anime, this isn't a show just about visuals either. These may be some of my favorite KyoAni characters in a very long time. Maybe since Hyoka or Sound Euphonium, which are probably my favorite KyoAni anime. Each character is characterized to visual and written perfection. That's not to say they're the best characters KyoAni has ever done or just the best characters in general, but speaking inside of the bubble of only Free, they're as spectacularly written as they are visually dazzling. Well, yeah, I mean, sure, it probably, to some, has a little bit of yaoi bait, a bit of this or a bit of that. It's not that bad in my opinion. It actually kind of makes the anime really fun and endearing, even if you may hate those aspects. While this anime isn't for everyone on the outside looking in, I still think this is, oddly enough, one of the most accessible KyoAni anime you could watch right now. So yeah, I give it a full recommendation. I enjoyed it, and if you have a heart, so should you. There it is, another 12 days of anime video down. I want to say thank you to everyone in my Discord for making this one a possibility, because without a certain person, I don't want to say their name here, but without a certain person, I would have never seen Free, and I would have never been turned on to this anime. So if that person is watching, I thank you. Yeah, and as well, since it's the 12 days of anime, find another creator out there, type in the YouTube search 12 days of anime and sort by the newest upload you can, and watch some 12 days of anime creators. It really does go a long way. There's a lot more people in the anime community than just Mother's Basement or whatever. There's all kinds of different people with all kinds of different styles and ways they write, and different opinions. And I think it's important we spotlight some of those opinions, which I think is what 12 Days of Anime are for. I also, on my Twitter page, at SeaTacticsYT, will be tweeting out as much as I can watch, of course. 12 Days of Anime videos. I think I recently tweeted out a video from Mason McWeeb, which is he had a really good, thoughtful video on Dr. Stone. So, with that being said, thanks everybody for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Comment below. What are your thoughts on Free? I really want to hear it. And as well, know that I have a Patreon page, where on the $1 tier and above, you get access to pretty much everything. So I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.